Well, really tough questions. I can tell you what it isn't. First of all, people think core exercises have to do with a muscle called transverse abdominis and whatnot. This is absolutely barking up the wrong tree.
Right.
Forget about that muscle. If you're focusing on it, you're wasting your time. Let me talk about what it does do. Let's take the core as the region between the two ball and socket joints, the ball and sockets of the shoulders and the ball and sockets of the hips. Now, the ball and socket joints, the hips and the shoulders, are made to create power. Lots of force through a great range of motion. That's what they're designed to do. So the muscles of the ball and socket joints are designed to move.
Yeah.
Now, the region between those two, the spine, is the polar opposite. The muscles are designed to stop motion. Therefore, they should be trained differently. Now, the region between those two ball and socket joints are made up of joints that form a bending beam. Now, if you take a coat hanger and you want to bend that coat hanger back and forth, you're obliged to. But it will eventually crack somewhere. And if you keep creating the stress-strain reversals in that coat hanger, it's eventually going to break. And that's what people do to their spines. It's because it's not a ball and socket joint, it's a bending beam. So if you keep bending it, eventually you will succumb. So the core muscles stop motion. Now imagine this. If you were to kick a football, a soccer ball, I'm assuming a good English lad is very proficient at that. Now, yes. So think of the muscles you use to kick with, and people are going to say, well, we need to flex the hip. All right, let's take rectus femoris, psoas, iliacus, all those muscles that span the hip, that propel the thigh forward for the kick. Now, those muscles, when they pull on your thigh bone, on the femur, they create motion, but they also pull on the other end of those muscles into the core, which is onto the pelvis and the spine. Now, if the spine bends, that means less motion is going to go into the leg on the other side. So, if you can imagine this, if you have more proximal stiffness, in other words, no motion between the shoulders and the hips. So all of those muscles that cross the shoulders and the hips, the movement only takes place on the distal side. So, the core is all about creating proximal stiffness to enhance distal mobility. So if you want to kick a soccer ball, stiffen the core supremely at that instant that your boot hits the ball. And then all the athleticism is expressed on the distal side and you get a beautiful kick. But if you have a soft belly and a soft core and your spine bends, that's called an energy leak. You won't kick the ball very far at all. So imagine a tennis serve. Everyone in your listenership will know, say Venus Williams.
Yep.
So when she serves a tennis ball, at the instant and just before the tennis racket hits the ball, you're going to hear that grunt, the whoo. And what she's doing there is overdriving the stiffness in her core, which allows even more power and speed on the distal side of her ball and socket joint, which is her shoulders. So they're creating what's called a super stiffness down through the core to become even more athletic on the distal side. So that's the function of the core for athletic performance. Violating that will lead to poor performance and injury.